Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the greatest recordings ever. And this one was suggested by one of you, and I just wanted to do it because you were right. I mean, really right. And what the hell? It's just amazing. When I originally did the Moran Symphony in G minor on Lyrita, some of you mentioned other Lyrita recordings, of which there are quite a few that could be in this series. But one of them jumped out and struck me, and it was this one. William Alwyn conducts William Alwyn. Now, Alwyn was, lived from 1905 to 1985. He was one of those composers of the English musical Renaissance. I mean, this is sort of the second generation, the later generation. He wrote a lot of film music. He was a very professional guy. He wrote 5 symphonies and a bunch of concertos and other orchestral works. And it's all very enjoyable, listenable music, not populist music, though. I mean, he was an aesthete. He really was. I mean, one of his pieces is called symphonies is called like Hydriotaphia or something. It's about inscriptions on urns and things and archaeology. I have no idea. The bottom line is that, yeah, he was kind of well, like I said, intellectual sort of aesthetic guy. And that doesn't mean his music's anything wrong with his music. There isn't, but it's sophisticated. And he doesn't dumb it down in any way. It's really solidly crafted, thoughtful music. You're not going to go after Alwyn for the tunes. He often works with intervals and things like that. I don't know how else to describe it, but the harmony is rather traditional. I mean, in its deployment, and the general impression you get is of someone who really knows what he's doing. I mean, he's just got a real grip on the proceedings. A lot of his stuff is neoclassical, and in this recording, you do get his Concerto Grosso No. 2 for string orchestra, and the Autumn Legend for English horn and orchestra. I mean, just wonderful poetic music. It really is. It's thoughtful music too. And one of the things that you can listen to and just wallow in, forget thinking, God forbid, is his harp concerto, Lyra Angelica, a screaming masterpiece in its genre. We've talked about this before. I'm an absolute sucker for harp concertos. I love harp concertos. I think it's an amazing instrument. Very little exploited. I mean, it is somewhat limited in its range. I mean, it's a harp, right? I mean, you're not going to have tragic harp music quite often. I mean, you can do creepy harp music. That you can do. But, expressively tragic, lyrical, long singing lines. Well, that's not what a harp does. A harp arpeggiates, right? That's what harp means. Arpeggio means harp. It comes from the word for harp, arpa in Italian, right? I mean, it does that sort of thing. And so, it goes booby doo booby 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 and glissandos and whoosh 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 and but it's still such a marvelous sounding instrument that I just love hearing what you can do with it. It has its own unique sort of range and mode of utterance. Let's put it that way. And Alwyn was just the kind of guy who would be into different modes of utterance. So Lyra Angelica, which means angelic lyre, right, of course, is for harp and string orchestra. He wrote it for the great British harpist, Osian Ellis, who performs it here under the baton of the conductor. And that's why this is one of the greatest performances ever with the London Philharmonic, because one of the things I said at the very beginning of this series is that, the recording medium has allowed us to enjoy and experience great works performed by the composers who wrote them and the people for whom they were written. And if those are not the greatest recordings ever, then I don't know what are. I mean, what should be considered such. I really don't, because this is about as good as it gets. Now, Lyra Angelica has been recorded a couple of times because it's so wonderful and because there are so few really great harp concertos out there. And all of the recordings of it are really pretty splendid because we know how it should go. I mean, we have the composer's own recording of it, and it's a piece of music that only people who really want to get into this kind of repertoire are going to do, and they're going to do it well. And there are lots of fabulous harpists out there, and they're just drooling for repertoire. But this is a very, very special recording. I mean, the Concerto Grosso number 2 is also delightful, and so is Autumn, Autumn Thing here, Autumn Legend. There you go. That's what it's called. But all these are like string orchestra and other thing pieces, but boy, Lyra Angelica is so special. It's one of the great 20th century concertos, period, for any instrument, I'm telling you. And it's big. It's a little bit over half an hour long in 4 juicy movements. And the harp just has such a swell time doing everything it can possibly do. And Osian Ellis just obviously is thrilled that somebody would write something this great for him and his instrument. Really an astonishing achievement. And so I am happy, I say, to promote this disc because you mentioned it and you were right to bring it up. There will be other recordings by Lyrita on this series because Lyrita does what exactly the series is intended to do. Make absolutely great recordings featuring composers and people like that and dedicatees doing some of their own music as often as not, or things that are less familiar that should be familiar and that are still just amazing recordings. And that's the whole point. So yeah, if you don't know this, go and listen to Lyra Angelica. You're gonna have a great time. It's phenomenal. Trust me with this. We've talked about it before, by the way. But wow, what a glorious piece. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me, and thank you for this suggestion. I mean, it was just spot on. Take care.